your host for the day. I am the founder of the Save Our Sisters not for profit group and host of this Save Our Sisters Unplugged podcast. This podcast is all about resilience and strength, where I help women share their stories of survival through success through the power of storytelling. I created this podcast because I believe in the invincible spirit that resides within every woman. My goal is to help women walk in their power by providing a safe and empowering space where we can come together, share our stories, our struggles, our achievements, and have it be done in a safe and non judgmental environment. Now, the point of this is to let women know that they're not alone in their life struggles, right? And their sisters understand and are here to help them through it all. Now, while my primary focus is amplifying women's voices, I will occasionally feature men's stories to provide valuable perspective on how both genders can work together for mutual empowerment, which is why my boy Clive is on today. So he will be a part of this summit because I believe that his vision for his podcast touches an area that we're lifting the carpet on, but in a minute, he'll be able to tell you all about that. So, wanted to celebrate International Podcast Day because it's an international celebration of the power of podcasts. Podcasts reach so many people, so many topics. I stream my podcasts when I'm cooking, when I'm cleaning, when I'm working, just when I'm just trying to, veg out for the day, right? And I listen to everything from every genre. So the celebration is typically celebrated tomorrow, but due to scheduling conflicts, we're just going to celebrate one day early. So this kind of gives us, just the opportunity to connect with fellow podcasters and, of course, podcast enthusiasts. So let me introduce the panelists of Black Excellence. First up, Miss Coach Keisha Woods from the Woman's Hustle, Thrills and Spills of Entrepreneurship podcast. Girl, you got me on that one. Miss Melissa Webb from Untoxify Your Relationship, and Mr. Clive Vanterpool from Candid Conversations. Welcome, welcome, guys.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey,
Since we stream live, we have to
go
make
live.
sure that things are right because right now I don't see it streaming. So I just want to
Let me
make
start
sure.
over.
Okay,
There
because
we
it says scheduled for me still. It's not streaming on my YouTube or my Facebook.
Wait a minute.
So
I hit the go live. It didn't go live. Hold on.
okay, I just want to be sure.
God damn it. I'm going to do my intro again.
You sure do. Because I'm like, I don't see it to share it. So
It's always something. Yeah, record audio and video.
are you live though? Are you live or
Uh,
are you just recording?
here we go.
There we go.
All right. Well, take two. Oh my goodness. Well, take two. Hey, beautiful people. Welcome to the Voices of Impact Podcast Summit. My name is Noreen Ford, your host for the day. I am the founder, the founder and host of the Save Our Sisters not for profit group and this wonderful Save Our Sisters Unplugged podcast. This podcast is all about resilience and strength, where I help women share their stories of survival to success through the power of storytelling. Now, I created the podcast because I believe that women have an invincible spirit that resides inside them. And I want to be able to basically just help women walk in their power by providing this safe environment where we can just share our struggles, our achievements, and our successes in a safe and judgment free environment. As we know, we don't like people talking about our stuff. Once we in the room, we want things to stay in the room. And so the point of this is to let women know they're not alone in their life struggles and that their sisters understand and are here to help them through it all. Now, while my primary focus is on amplifying women's voices, I will occasionally feature men's stories to provide valuable perspective on how both genders can work together for mutual empowerment. which is why I've invited Clive here to be on this podcast because I feel like his podcast represents an area that, you know, it's not too talked about. It's just, we're just uncovering, peeling the band aid off for that one. You're just peeling the onion back on that. But he will give you some details on that a little bit later. But I do feel like men's voices are important, and we also always need a man's perspective. So I wanted to celebrate this day, which is normally celebrated on September 30th, but due to scheduling conflicts, we're celebrating one day early. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce my amazing panelists. First up, we have Miss Coach Keisha Woods from the Women's Hustle, Thrills and Spills of Entrepreneurship. Melissa Webb from the Untoxify Your Relationship podcast, and Mr. Clive Vanterpool from Candid Conversations. Welcome, guys.
Hey, hey, hey.
But
Hi.
they just bring up the ray. So, give us a little bit of back history on yourselves and tell us a little bit about your podcast and the story behind the name.
Well, I am Keisha Woods, aka Coach K Transforms. I am the founder of Upgraded Mindsets LLC, but my podcast is The Woman's Hustle, Thrills and Spills of Entrepreneurship. And I do have a second podcast called Empowering Real Talk. Both podcasts are basically talking about transformation, shifting, but of course, different subjects. So my primary focus right now is the Woman's Hustle, Thrills and Spills of Entrepreneurship, and it focuses on just that. As a woman entrepreneur, I wanted to create a space for women who are either interested in entrepreneurship, those are on the entrepreneur journey and stuck, or thriving ones that are scaling. This is pretty much talking about the thrills and spills. I named it that because we know if you are an entrepreneur like myself, entrepreneurship is a roller coaster ride like no other. So the reason why I came up with the name is because we always hear about the great things of entrepreneurship. We always hear about all of the magnificent six-figure months that people are making and, things like that. And of course, that is great. But because I'm real and raw, I have to also talk about the unfortunate side, the months where no one makes any money, the days where we want to just give up and go back to corporate America, and also bringing other experts in to talk about their thrills and spills as well, just to have a panelist of people to talk about
Thank you.
all of those things. So Empowering Real Talk is my baby that I've had for 3 years. And although I love Empowering Real Talk, and that is my groundbreaking podcast, The Woman's Hustle has just proved that it was a podcast that was necessary. I've received great feedback and insight on it. So just glad to be here to vibe out with the rest of you guys today. So thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I'm next.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Hi, my name is Melissa Webb. I am a licensed counselor in Missouri and Illinois. I am located in St. Louis, Missouri. 314 for show. Yes, Nelly, stand up. But my podcast, Untoxify Your Relationship, is all about getting that toxic mess out of you and your partnership. So I come from a biblical perspective. It all basically started when I was a therapist, still am a therapist, but when I was doing private practice, I worked with a lot of women and their relationship issues. And I was like, oh my God, is this like across the board? And so I wanted to definitely help a wide range of people outside of just St. Louis and Missouri and Illinois. And so I started a podcast to help others with their relationship issues and definitely come from it from a biblical perspective, because if you're not aligned with your partner, you're not aligned with God, then why are we even doing this? So that is what I do. And I'm almost at 50 episodes. We're going to take a little break after 50, which will be in like 2 more episodes. And then we're going to come back fresh in 2025, talking more about dating and actually being in a relationship and what that looks like. So again, a lot of mental health standpoint and from a biblical standpoint, because both can live together in harmony. You don't need one or the other. It's both and. So that's me.
As you said before, some people need Jesus and a therapist.
Absolutely. It's a t-shirt. Buy it.
Mr. Vanderpool. Hmm. Exactly. And I love it. And just like I was saying before, we want to lift the rug up on that because there's a lot of men out there that feel that they cannot express themselves, right? And we know that when you can't express yourself and you hold stuff in, just like a balloon, you hold it and hold it and hold it, and one day you just pop. And then that could blast off on your spouse, your children, your your boss, and none of those situations are going to turn out well for you, especially as a spouse. I think the spouse is a little scarier than the boss at times. So, getting into the theme of this summit, Voices of Impact. What does that mean to you, and how does that tie into what you discuss on your podcast?
So for me, and I'm gonna kind of always come from two aspects because although the woman's hustle is the primary focus, I will never forget about my initial baby, which is Empowering Real Talk. So just speaking from Empowering Real Talk, the mental health aspect is definitely in there. I wanted to have those real raw, uncut conversations. And if those that know me, those that are listening, and those they may not know me, I'm a very vocal, outspoken, and sometimes loud person. But I've shifted that from a negative loud into a positive advocating loud. So Empowering Real Talk is just that. When it comes to the woman's hustle, same thing. I want to be vocal about women in entrepreneurship because a lot of times we don't feel supported on our journeys. So I wanted to create that space and create an impact on that. And just being able to, on both podcasts, to hear someone tell me, hey, I listened to your episode. It really inspired me to do X, Y, and Z. And I really appreciate that. To me, that is always going to be an impact, whether it's a comment on one of the episodes, whether someone's inboxing me, emailing me, inquiring about being a guest on the show. All of those factors to me are part of advocating because there's others that want to play a part in doing that with me. So I love that I'm able to utilize my voice in that aspect.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
for
important. Go
my
ahead.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. For me, it's being a voice for healthy relationships. I think a lot of people get their advice from no shade, no tea, from people on social media don't know what they're talking about. Um, and I think it's perpetuating a world of earthly wisdom rather than heavenly wisdom. And so when you have that, you do have unhealthy relationships, toxic relationships, and then also people using buzzwords wrong. It just really just grinds my gears. And I'm just like, no, I want to be the voice that can help reshape relationships, because that is important, not only for romantic relationships, as far as family, at your job, with your friends and loved ones, right? Like that, relationships are, we're going to have relationships, right? And so being able to have healthy ones is different than just having a relationship. So for me, I wanted to be the voice of how can we have healthy relationships? What does that look like? How do we get there? And how can we incorporate Christianity in that, so that way it's just not like I'm just pulling some from thin air. I'm actually coming from the book, and if I'm coming from the Bible, we know that is truth, and people need the truth and not the fake truth. And so for me, I am wanting to be that voice of, hey, let's have healthy relationships, and what does the Bible say about this? So for me, that's what Voices of Impact is.
Okay, that's great. I agree with that too. Using yourself as an example is always. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm sorry. I think I might have had some technical difficulty. Um, yeah, I agree with using yourself as an example, because a lot of people, they look for that credibility. And in my podcast, where it is called Save Our Sisters, and the reason why it's called Save Our Sisters, it was strategic. Someone asked me, why wouldn't I change my name from Save Our Sisters to something else? And I said, well, I wouldn't change it from something else because the acronym for Save Our Sisters is SOS, and SOS means help. And what I aim to do is help people through their trauma. Now, I'm not a therapist. So if you have not really dealt with your deep seated trauma, I would always recommend that you do that. But people that have shared their story before and they just want to let people know that they're not alone, I like to deal with them. But the validity in it is when before I even get you on my podcast, I want to have a sis chat, not only to see how we vibe well, but to let you know, hey, you know what? I've been where you are. I know what you're going through because I've been through it. I've been through a lot, and I've told my stories in various episodes of the podcast. So I definitely understand how using yourself can be a big impact because, sometimes it's like people that give parenting advice. And we know that not all people that give parenting advice can parent. Sometimes they're not even parents, right? And they have all these things to say, but they don't know what they're talking because they don't know, how to manage children. They don't know how to raise a household. They don't know that your teenager and your adult child and your little toddler are going to have three different parents within the same person, right? So when you have your podcast and you're really just using your voice to make an impact on others, it does matter what you say. It does matter what your content is, and it does matter who your target audience is, because you touch people, and I know some of us are already touching people in all across, all walks of life, all across the globe, right? Which is important because that's where the radio waves are, and we want to do that. So I really like how you guys are really using your voice to really impact everyone, because that's truly important. So when we're on our podcast and we're telling our thing, it's basically storytelling, right? People are coming on, they're telling their story, they're telling you how they've been. How has storytelling transformed the way you approach difficult topics in your podcast?
For me, it honestly, in the beginning, I started podcasting simply because it was something to do during the pandemic. I didn't think at that time that it was something that I was going to become so passionate about and really want to do for the long term. Um, Touching back a little bit on what you said as far as the transparency, I think it's critical. And that's one thing that I've made sure of bringing is that level of transparency. So, you gotta tell me that question again because I got straight off track. What you say? What was the question?
I said, how has storytelling transformed the way you
Right,
approach difficult
right.
topics in your podcast?
Um, well, honestly, I do want to touch on therapeutic intervention is probably something that I recommend before. I do have a screening process because I do feel like that sometimes a storytelling can get dangerous in a sense. But for me, just the level of transparency that I have, it actually shows the others that it's okay to be that transparent, and I think that the storytelling, and honestly, I storytell sometimes, but I like to engage in conversation with both of us, right? So if I have a guest on the show, it's not that I'm interviewing them per se. We are discussing a particular type of topic. So within that, the storytelling side comes in from them sharing their personal experiences or their professional experiences, whatever that looks like for them. But I don't want them to feel like that I'm kind of quote putting them on the spot. So within that, the storytelling side comes into us engaging in, maybe sharing experiences, sharing transparent moments, speaking on the fact of, hey, we both went through this, so let's touch on this particular topic. So, I guess that's what I would label my storytelling within my podcast, because I just really believe in being transparent in every episode that I record. And I believe that my listeners want transparency in every single episode. And I don't believe in having like a fixed setting. I want open and honest all day, every day. So that's kind of where I take it. The storytelling is really us both kind of sharing experiences and sharing insight on a specific topic. And if that includes a part of our story, a part of our history, whether it's trauma, pain, whatever that may be, then great, but I just want that level of transparency in the storytelling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me, I always open up with some type of story, whether it's my crazy story of dating and some of the dating roles that I have had, or even stories I've heard from other people. Of course, everything's anonymous, but I use that to as one as an attention grabber, and then two, just to normalize like you're not the only one going through this, and other people have gone through this as well, and so kind of like normalizing some of the things that people go through. I also use, of course, Bible stories because I love talking about the children of Israel leaving Egypt, going to the wilderness, and just how they all just kind of jack that up. And then just taking different viewpoints, different stories in the Bible, and how, yes, this can also go with what you're talking about and what you're going through. And this is the lesson from that. And so I tell a lot of stories, whether it's personal or biblical, to help bring awareness to whatever topic I'm talking about. And then also I love the transparency of stories because like I said, the transparency of me is I'm not perfect. Transparency of biblical stories is the people in the Bible certainly wasn't perfect, except for Jesus. But that's a whole nother story. But after that, but really it's just the whole point of, yeah, we're not perfect, and this is what has happened to people, whether personally or even in the Bible, of how they made it through and how they were able to move forward in that relationship or topic.
Absolutely. And Josh says storytelling shows vulnerability, transparency, and can sometimes establish trust in a newly formed relationship or interaction, which is
Absolutely.
very, very true and very important. Oh, wow.
Tell you, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I look at it exactly the same way too, because Keisha would be able to tell you, I'm as much as I'm out here in these streets, I'm a very shy person. I don't like people to know my business. And I figured out why podcasting was my choice. It's because I could hide behind my microphone. And then Miss Keisha was like, well, you got to get live. People got to see who you are, and I'm like, what? People got to see me? And she's like, yeah. How else are they going to relate to what you're saying if they can't see you? And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to creep out here in these streets and see what happens. So I did like one LinkedIn Live, and it was supposed to be 30 minutes, but I was so nervous. I felt like I was in a therapist's office, and I ended up spending a whole hour, and I shared my entire story from start to finish. My hands was clammy, the hairs in the back of my head stood up. I wasn't even thinking about, oh God, people are going to listen to this and they're going to be like judging me. When I got done, I was like, oh God, people are going to really listen to this and they are going to take something from it. So I kind of like empowered myself, so to speak, because when you grow up in a household where you're supposed to keep the business in and you're putting all the business out, and not only are you putting the business out, you're putting it on live stream, which can be shared to multiple people for public opinion. It was a scary thing for me when I first came out. And so once I was out, I was like, you know what? I have to really keep doing this, because if the point of this is for me to get my voice out there and quote unquote save our sisters, then the sisters need to know who I am. They need to see my eyes, because I don't trust what people are saying. When people are talking to me and they got their sunglasses on, I'm like, I can trust nothing you say. Take them sunglasses off and I can look you right in your eyeballs. And I'm like, okay. And so I just took that same approach with the guidance of Miss Keisha here. Because I think it's important for us to do that.
It is.
So when you guys,
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to commend you because, I have been, supportive to you in every factor, and I just want to commend you because I have seen your growth, so much when it comes to that. And I just want to definitely let you know that I'm proud of you. I know we all are proud of you, but continue to do what you do.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's that encouraging. I was just telling my babes, I was like, I wasn't, because a lot of people don't know this, but I just lost my mom not too long ago, day after Mother's Day. And I am completely wrecked. I'm completely wrecked. You don't see it. I don't look like what I feel like, but I am completely wrecked. It has thrown my whole world upside down. And I knew that this was coming up, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to skip it for the year. And unbeknownst to Miss Keisha, what was going on, we met up for lunch and, well, dinner, tacos. And she just said, International Podcast Day is coming up, and I was like, okay, since she said it, that means I'm supposed to do it. So sometimes your motivation comes from places you don't even ask for it. It just indirectly comes to you. So when you guys are having those moments where you're like, oh, I don't think anybody's listening, maybe I'm not reaching anyone, how do you really pull yourself back to say, you know what? Let me get back out here and get back on my grind?
For me personally, if I get to that stage, I know that it's the self-doubt kicking in and I need a reset. So I have so many tools that